Our fourth artist that will be sharing their story has performed at our Vibrant Brampton Festival. Tamar Ilana is an internationally renowned award-winning vocalist in over 20 languages and a mesmerizing flamenco dancer. Tamar grew up on stage and on the road as a daughter of traveling ethnomusicologist and is Jewish, Indigenous, Romanian, and Scottish descent. Her global music project, Tamar Ilana and Ventanas, has released 3 albums, 2 of them at the Aga Khan Museum, and received 4 CFMA nominations. In 2020, Tamar co-founded fabcollab.ca to showcase BIPOC, female-identifying, and minority artists online. Sought after for her artistry and versatility, Tamar has been featured in award-winning musicals in New York, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., the UK, and Germany, recorded with artists around the world, and was dubbed Canada's own pan-global diva by Jesse Cook. Tamar has been surrounded by music and dance her whole life. She tells us about her journey with art.
Well, my art journey is in music and dance, specifically in terms of what kind of art form. And I started with my mother because she's an ethnomusicologist. So I really started, as a very young child. I think I started singing with her on stage when I was about 4 or 5. And we would perform mostly around Europe and around North America, in festivals and different stages. And we would actually go to villages and gather songs from older folk, from elders in villages all throughout the Mediterranean, a lot of Sephardic music and music of that diaspora, so Greece, Turkey, the Balkans, Morocco, and then a lot of music in Spain and Portugal. And then we would perform it. That's how I started, in some. And then, one more thing. I started flamenco also when I was around 7 or 8, here in Toronto, actually, with Esmeralda Enrique, a beautiful dancer. And now I sing with her company and I teach out of her studio. So that's how it began.
Being around music her whole life, Tamar has an abundance of folks who have influenced her in early life and some new influences.
My earliest influences, I think, were some of the musicians that we played with in Spain, and specifically Wafir Sheikh from Sudan, and he lives in Madrid, and Bill Cooley from New York originally, but who lives in Toledo. And we would really play so many shows with them, and their whole style influenced me. And then later, as I grew older and began to really study music, especially flamenco, in terms of Balkan music, Kremena Stancheva, a beautiful singer who passed away a few years ago, influenced me. And then Estrella Morente and Rocío Márquez in the flamenco world, and Yasmin Levy and Mor Karbasi are beautiful Sephardic singers. And then always, I just have to say that the musicians I play with in Toronto are incredible, in my band Ventanas and just in the general community here, and I'm just constantly learning from every single one of them.
Tamar talks about how the magic of her team and the world around her continuously inspires her in art.
There's really nothing else that I think I'm supposed to be doing. So I've tried to quit music, so to speak, quit it as a career. Many times I stopped in university. I stopped for a while performing and dancing. And then I stopped after and then I started again in Barcelona in 3rd year. And I stopped after university and worked full-time in renewable energy. And there's been a few moments in my life where I've sort of paused and done other things and sort of tried to see if really this was for me or if I was just doing it because I always did it. And every time I just come right back to it.
Yo lloré por él. Ay, yo lloré por él. Ay, ahora me río de él. Ay, ahora me río de él. Ay, ahora me río de él.
Tamar goes into depth about how her creative process starts with a tune or thought running through her mind and builds from there.
So I'm kind of always walking around with ideas in my head and little melodies. They just won't leave me. I'm like, that's there right the second, but if I did it another second, it'd probably be different. Like it's just, there's always melodies floating in my head. So the trick is to sit down and sort of lock them in, or voice memo them, and sort of lock them in. And then usually I start with a melody and then I put words afterwards. And I usually gravitate towards Spanish words. I just feel more comfortable singing in Spanish, I guess. It usually has to do with the theme of what I'm feeling or what I'm going through. But I also sometimes take other poets or other people's lyrics and sort of put them to melodies that other musicians, friends of mine and people in the band compose. And also I really love, so much repertoire that is traditional and that already exists out there, and especially in like the flamenco world. And it's about reworking that repertoire. So it's just got to be something that I absolutely love. And I love to sing like 1,000 times, because otherwise, why do you do it?
Being in the arts world for so long, Tamar shares some of the artists she had a chance to collaborate with.
So my favorite collaborators, I just keep saying it, but I'll say it again. Definitely my band, so I'll name them. Dimitri Petsalakis, originally from Greece, oud player, multi-instrumentalist, producer. Justin Gray, bassist, producer, invented an instrument, the bass vina. Jessica Deutsch, violinist, composer, singer. Tyler Emo, a bassist, electric guitar. Benjamin Barrile, flamenco guitarist. And then Derek Gray, percussionist. Like, there's just so many people that I love working with. Pretty much I feel like I could collaborate with anybody in any music, in any art form, any style, any language. It doesn't matter. We could sit down and collaborate. So I also just love songwriting with somebody I've never met. And it's scary to walk in that room with them and sit down, but every time you do it, it always results in something magical.
The pandemic changed Tamar's life from being an artist on the go to becoming a co-founder of an arts organization.
And I've still toured a bit in the pandemic, I gotta be honest. I've gone to LA and San Diego. I even went to Spain and Ohio and some other places across Canada. But really, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, when really everything shut down, I kind of I fully 100% co-founded a company called FabCollab, FabCollab.ca, with my fiance Ali and various other members of the community. And we are a presenting arts organization, a not-for-profit organization that focuses on Indigenous, Black, and people of color, primarily artists. My background is part Indigenous on my dad's side, and primarily women and non-binary folks. So we're artists, both on and off stage. So we have an interview series, we have online series called Girls with Gear. We have an empty venue series called Women in Song that has featured, dozens of artists from the city over the course of the pandemic in empty venues, and live streamed to tens of thousands of people with the National Arts Center and the Aga Khan Museum and Lula Lounge and Small World and a bunch of other fantastic partners and supporters. And there was a time in the fall where we were able to actually have live audience as well as live stream it. But really, so I guess in sum, the biggest change is that I went from artist to presenter. And that's a whole different, way of thinking of the arts, and I absolutely love it. Oh, one more thing. I also learned how to do a solo set with a looper and a keyboard and a drum machine, because up until now I've always had to have either guitar or oud or somebody accompanying me. But now during the pandemic, I taught myself and I did some solo shows, so that's pretty cool.
Tamar's main focuses going into the future is growing her business, FabCollab, and getting back on the road to do more shows.
Two, I guess, massive goals. I really, really want to grow FabCollab and feature as many artists from different walks of life as possible. And so although our focus is BIPOC and women identifying artists, we're really open to, the name is collab, FabCollab. So we really collaborate with anybody and everybody from anywhere in the world. And I really just want to invest a lot of time and love and energy into that company, into that production, and produce the biggest, most beautiful shows possible and the most inclusive shows. And then and paying people properly, which is a big deal in the arts world. And then in terms of my personal artistic development, I plan to go back on tour with my band Ventanas. We went to Ohio. We're supposed to play Folk Alliance International. Hopefully it happens in Kansas City in May, and just get back on the road. And we also want to create some new original works.
If Tamar were to encapsulate her work and someone found it 50 years from now, she wants it to be timeless. Here Tamar explains how she would like folks to take away from it.
That's such an interesting question. I would want to take, in 50 years, I would want them to take away, I guess, sort of almost like a stamp of the times, like when you find a dinosaur, that was like a representation of that era. And I really want the work that I am part of to be a representation of our community, our arts community now, and all the incredible people. I know this sounds cliche, but really, as you know, in Toronto, there's like superstars from around the world that come here and like nobody knows about them. And I really want to work with them all, feature everybody, as well as local artists that are born here, and of course, Indigenous artists that are from here, but really just like highlight the artists that might go unnoticed and underground and bring them to the surface, because they're the root and heart of our community. And if I want somebody to open that box and be like, wow, it's full of treasure, artistic treasure, different songs created by different people from all around the world and contributing towards like the future sound of the land that we live in.